Hey everyone, this is Will and I'm back for another PDH deck tech for you today. This episode we'll be beginning our coverage of one CMC cycle of commanders, with each commander costing a single mana. This week we'll be starting with a spicy one in red with Goblin Lackey. Goblin Lackey is a 1/1 goblin creature for 1 and says whenever Goblin Lackey successfully deals damage to a player, you may choose a goblin card in your hand and put that goblin into play. This ability is extremely powerful as long as you have Goblin Lackey continuing to make contact to begin dumping goblins into play. And so our first priority is to include cards that make him evasive. And so two really powerful cards that I'd start off with mentioning that we're including in the deck is 1, Caterwaul Boggart, a 2/2 for 4. It says each goblin you control can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures, essentially providing menace for all of your goblins. As well as Whisper Silk Cloak, it's an equipment for 3 that says equipped creature can't be blocked and has Shroud, essentially making your commander unblockable. And so these are really powerful spells early on, and you can imagine if you were lucky enough to have Caterwaul Boggart in your opening hand, you can theoretically cast Lackey on turn 1, deal damage on turn 2, and be able to cheat Caterwauling into play, guaranteeing Lackey will be able to swing again on the 3rd turn at the very least, as well as making all future goblins harder for your opponents to deal with. So what are some other cards that we'd include to make this mechanic more consistent? 3 additional cards that could activate your commander that you should include are 1, Firefight Mage, which is a 1/1 for 1 that says pay a colorless and a red, tap, discard a card, target creature can't be blocked this turn except by artifact creatures and or other red creatures. Goblin Smuggler, a 2/2 for 3, and Goblin Tunneler, a 1/1 for 2, both say tap, target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. Obviously, Smuggler and Tunneler are preferred choices, but it is necessary to have Firefight Mage as a backup to be able to consistently make sure your commander is able to make contact to start dumping those free goblins into play. If you're really thinking about it, if you have turn 3, you only have 3 mana, and you have at least 3 CMC creatures in your hand, make contact, you cast one, and then you play the other one for free. You're basically dumping for 6 mana on your turn 3. Really powerful. And so while you're making contact with creatures, unblockable is ideal. There are also other scenarios where we just want to make sure the opponent can't have favorable blocks, which can be more than sufficient to still allow your creatures to deal significant damage with your goblins. So creatures like Frenzied Goblin is a 1/1 for 1 that says whenever it attacks, you may pay a red. If you do, target creature can't block this turn. And Goblin Battle Jester is a 2/2 for 4 that says whenever you cast a red spell, target creature can't block this turn. With this deck having a relatively low mana curve for goblins, it's quite reliable for Goblin Jester to be able to make several creatures unblockable, and with the Goblin Frenzy, you may only have to be concerned about one big 4/4 in play, so you can allows the rest of your team to swing through. And so now that we have several mechanics for making Goblin Lackey as well as your other goblins potentially unblockable, what are some of the cards that we want to cheat into play? Obviously, the very first or most important card to include in your deck is probably Goblin Matron, which is a 1/1 for 3 that says Goblin Matron comes into play. You may search your library for a goblin card. If you do, reveal that card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library afterwards. Tutor effects are super rare in Pauper, so you're going to want to include Goblin Matron. It's an absolute must, because once you play it, you can obviously assess the board state, either pick some technical answers out of the deck to address your board state, or search for a damage dealer. What are some of the damage dealers we might include in the deck? Obviously some of the lords. So Goblin General, a 1/1 for 3 that says whenever it attacks, goblin creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Goblin Bushwhacker is a 1/1 for 1 with a red kicker that says when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, creatures you control get +1/+1, +1/+0, and gain haste until end of turn. And Goblin Lookout is a 1/2 for 2 that says tap, sacrifice a goblin. All goblins get +2/+0 until end of turn. At first, these may not seem like they're powerful, but when you consider that most goblin cards and tokens are usually 1/1s, these cards can essentially double or triple your damage for the turn. So it's really powerful. And if we're thinking about if we're going to be going wide, several must-includes in the deck are Beetleback Chief, a 2/2 for 4 that creates 2 1/1 goblins, and Goblin Instigator that is a 1/1 for 1 that creates an additional 1 goblin, allowing you to go wide and fully utilize those lords. And in line with this strategy, an absolute must include in the deck is Raid Bombardment, which is an enchantment for 3 that says when a creature you control with power 2 or less attacks, Raid Bombardment deals 1 damage to the defending player. So you're going to be getting multiple triggers as your whole group of goblins are starting to swing in, and nearly all the creatures we have included in the deck are 2 power or less and guarantees damage. Damage is dealt when your creatures swing. It's a very nice enchantment to round out the deck, and even if they have walls, 0/4s, you're still consistently dealing damage. And so this is my take on a Goblin Lackey PDH deck, focusing on a go-wide strategy, generating a massive threat in a few turns. As you can see, the mana curve for this deck is relatively low, focused around 2 CMC, and as one might expect, the deck is predominantly creatures to lean into that Goblin tribal, and the cost of the deck is around $16, not including Goblin Lackey. And you can check out the deck list in the description. Please like and subscribe and let us know what interesting strategies you would include in this build, and check back next week when we take on our mono black deck. I'm Will from PDH Commander. Thanks for watching.